Chapter 705. After descending from the observation deck, just as Shi Yao had guessed, Lin Jiej brought her to the same open-air restaurant where they had dinner the previous time. They were seated at the same spot as before. At the center of the 3-meter-long dining table was a bouquet of fresh flowers and a candlestick with 9 lit candles. Even the waiter was the same one who had served them the previous time. As soon as they were seated, he asked the same question as before, "Mr. Lin, may I know if we should serve the dishes now?" Lin Jiej was still as taciturn as ever. He nodded slightly, indicating that it was fine. With a smile, the waiter replied with "all right" before taking his leave. Not too long later, the waiter pushed a trolley over to serve the dishes. Looking at the dishes that were identical to the previous time, Shi Yao's gaze eventually fell on the sweet and sour ribs closest to her. She remembered clearly that this was the very first dish that caught her eye that day. Just as she was about to pick up some food with her chopsticks, she suddenly noticed that something was amiss, so she raised her head and asked, Didn't you say summer camp? Where are the others?" If not for the fact that she knew that everything that had happened was real, she would have thought that it was all a dream. A moment later, Shi Yao's gaze finally moved from the sweet and sour ribs to Lin Jiej's face. However, the words that came out of her mouth were different from the last time. "Lin Jiej, what's wrong?" Lin Jiej didn't respond. Just like before, he was ladling soup into a golden porcelain bowl for her. When he placed the bowl of soup in front of her, Shi Yao asked once more, Why did you do what you did at Mountain Changming all over again?" "This is fish soup. The fish is freshly slaughtered, so it's especially delicious. Have a taste." Under Shi Yao's relentless questioning, Lin Jiej finally retracted his hand from the bowl of soup and raised his head to look at Shi Yao. Just like that day, the flickering candlelight reflected in his eyes, accentuating his dashing aura. "Lin." Shi Yao could tell that Lin Jiej was intentionally changing the topic, but barely after she said a word, he interrupted her once more. "These dishes are all specially prepared by the chefs here. Have a taste, they're all quite delicious." Shi Yao opened her mouth, wanting to say something. This time, before she could say a single word, Lin Jiej had already picked up some vegetables and placed them on her plate. At the same time, he spoke up once more. "It's cold now, and food outside will cool down quickly. You should eat it while it's hot." Shi Yao stared at the mountain of delicacies on her plate, and it didn't take long for her to move her lips. However, in the end, she chose not to say anything. Instead, she replied with a "thank you" before picking up her chopsticks. Seeing her move her chopsticks, he followed suit. Climbing the mountain in the afternoon had sapped a lot of her stamina, so she was starting to feel a little hungry. After filling her stomach, she realized that Lin Jiej had at some point in time put down his chopsticks and was staring intently at her through the flickering candlelight. Even though it was a little dark outside, making it difficult for her to see the expression in his eyes, she could sense that he had a lot of things he wanted to tell her. However, before she had a chance to speak, he said, "Are you full?" Shi Yao nodded lightly. Chapter 706. What is it? Seeing that Lin Jiej had gotten up, Shi Yao stood up as well. Lin Jiej didn't respond to her question. Instead, he slowed down his footsteps so that she could keep up with him. On their way out of the restaurant, the waiter who escorted them passed a bag to Lin Jiej. Shi Yao thought that it was a small gift from the restaurant, so she didn't think too much of it. Following by Lin Jiej's side, they walked along a path filled with all kinds of wildflowers on both sides of the mountain. It took them a long time before they finally arrived at the entrance of a hotel located at the top of the mountain. The hotel didn't register Lin Jiej and Shi Yao's identities. After verifying Lin Jiej's identity, the waiter handed him a room card. There was no waiter to lead them to the entrance of the hotel, and as if he had been here before, Lin Jiej led Shi Yao through a long corridor with great familiarity. After walking for a while, they finally stopped in front of a small wooden villa with its back facing the cliff. Lin Jiej swiped the room card, but he wasn't in a hurry to enter. Instead, he shot a glance at Shi Yao. Shi Yao knew that Lin Jiej was signaling for her to enter. After a moment of hesitation, she took 2 steps forward and pushed the door open. The windows of the hotel room were open, and the night breeze blew in from the top of the mountain. Feeling a little chilly, Shi Yao shivered slightly. She was just about to continue walking in when Lin Jiej suddenly called out, "Wait a moment." Shi Yao turned around and saw Lin Jiej taking out a woolen shawl from the small bag given to him by the waiter. After which, he wrapped the shawl around Shi Yao's body. She was stunned for a moment before Lin Jiej raised his chin slightly toward the room behind him, indicating for her to continue walking in. Shi Yao turned around and switched on the lights in the room with the help of the light from the corridor. After which, she walked a short distance into the room before coming to a halt. How is this a hotel room? It's practically a kingdom of snacks. Every corner of the room was filled with all kinds of snacks. There were jellies, lollipops, chocolates, White Rabbit creations, potato chips. Other than the narrow path in the middle, the entire room was filled with snacks that Shi Yao had eaten before, some she hadn't, and some she couldn't name. She turned to look at Lin Jiej. Lin Jiej was still standing at the entrance, looking at her. Although he didn't say anything, she could tell from his eyes that he wanted her to continue walking. Shi Yao turned around and walked past the snacks to the balcony outside the hotel. As if someone had sealed her acupoints, she stared at the wooden model that was 1 meter in length and 1 meter in width on the balcony in astonishment. It was a house. The tiles were made of biscuits, the bed was in the shape of marshmallows, the floor was covered with chocolate, the cabinets were candy houses, the decorations on the walls were strawberries and pineapples, the sofa was covered with cakes, yogurt flowed out of the tap, ice cream was in the fridge, and the gravel road was paved with nuts. Although the whole model and everything was fake, it was very realistic. It was no different from the snacks she usually ate. Colorful lights were hung all around the house. They twinkled and looked exceptionally exquisite. This had always been her dream, so how did Lin Jiej know about it? How did he do it? Chapter 707. I want to climb the tallest mountain with you and get drunk. I want to travel to the furthest territory with you and take the longest train ride. I want to ride the tallest Ferris wheel with you and look at the most beautiful night scenery. I want to wait for the sunrise and sunset with you and challenge the impossible between us. I want to attend classes with you and sit side by side with you. I want to go to the library with you and read, write, and whisper sweet nothings. I want to be with you. I want to be with you and write 1,000 mountains. The one who writes is you. As long as it's you, Shi Yao. Shi Yao was very familiar with these words. They were the same words that Lin Jiej had sent to her in the past. So, the recording in the room was his. Shi Yao wanted to turn around once more, but just like before she could move, another voice sounded from the room. Shi Yao, I like you. Right after those words were spoken, the sound of fireworks exploding echoed from the horizon. Shi Yao turned her gaze toward the source of the sound, and she saw that the sky before her was filled with dazzling fireworks. Shi Yao tilted her head upward as she stared at the magnificent scenery in the sky for a long while. Then, she suddenly recalled the fireworks that had bloomed on Mountain Changming, and she had even said to Lin Jiej back then, "There are actually fireworks at the peak of Mountain Changming? It's so beautiful." But from the looks of it now, it didn't seem like what she had imagined. The fireworks today and that day. It was only after the colorful fireworks exploded that Shi Yao seemed to realize something, and she abruptly turned her head around to look behind her. Lin Jiej, who was standing at the door, had unknowingly appeared by her side. As soon as her eyes met his, she couldn't help but blurt out, "These fireworks were prepared by you?" Then, the other time, before Shi Yao could finish her stuttering words, Lin Jiej had already replied calmly, "I was thinking of doing this the other time." Shi Yao's words abruptly vanished without a trace. Her mind was still in a daze. The fireworks in the sky were still blossoming non-stop. She stared at Lin Jiej for a long while before his words began to echo in her mind. He had wanted to do this the last time he asked her to come to Mountain Changming. He wanted to set off fireworks, give her a room full of snacks, give her this balcony, and confess to her. The other time. It's just 2 simple words, but the information contained within them was a little too much. It took a long while before Shi Yao finally recovered. Did he not do all of these things the other time because he was the one to her even before she knew it? So, it turned out that Lin Jiej was already planning to confess to her back then. No, that's not right. It was even earlier than that. He had already said that he wanted to date her before Grandpa Lin's birthday. Did that mean that he liked her much earlier than she knew? Shiryao looked at Lin Jiej as her lips moved, but she didn't know what to say. They quietly looked at each other, stood there for a long time, until the fireworks in the sky disappeared. The whole world became quiet again. Then he said, Yao Yao, I wanted to do this last time. I also wanted to tell you, Yao Yao, I like you. As he spoke, he slowly turned around to look at the pitch-black cliff before him. He seemed to be contemplating something, and after a long while, his lips finally moved once more. Yao Yao, I'll agree to the matter of canceling our engagement. Chapter 708. Yao Yao, I'll agree to the annulment of our engagement. Silence reigned over the balcony once more. A long time later, Shiryao blinked her eyes as she pondered over Lin Jiej's words. Yao Yao, I'll agree to the annulment of our engagement. This wasn't the first time he'd said this to her. He'd agreed to the annulment of their engagement. Back at the clubhouse, he'd also said the same thing to her when he was infuriated. Compared to the previous time, his tone was much gentler this time. But for some reason, Shiryao couldn't understand what was wrong with her. His calm tone, which seemed to have come from deep contemplation, made her feel inexplicably flustered. Was he going to sever all contact with her just like that? Shiryao's black eyes darted around in bewilderment for a moment before she slowly turned her head to look at Lin Jiej. The boy seemed to sense her gaze and tilted his head slightly, making eye contact with her. The wind blowing from the bottom of the cliff messed up his hair and clothes, but his eyes that were looking at her were as calm as ever. Their gazes only met for a few short seconds before he spoke once more. There was an almost imperceptible firmness in his voice. It didn't seem like he was speaking to her but to himself. Yao Yao, I'll agree to the annulment of our engagement. This time, before he could finish his words, Shiryao suddenly felt a sharp pain in the depths of her left chest. How strange. She was the one who wanted to annul the engagement, and now that he'd finally agreed to it, why did her heart ache so much? She didn't say anything. He didn't wait for her to speak either. Instead, he stared at her quietly for a while longer before the corners of his lips curled up. There was a very, very faint smile on his face. Yao Yao, you'll be free from now on. You can do whatever you want. He was clearly smiling. But from his smile, Shiryao could see a heavy sorrow in it. Freedom. That's right. He's right. Ever since she gradually came to understand what that engagement represented, she had dreamed countless times of how wonderful it would be if she could be like other women, freely choosing her lover and being loved. But now, freedom had really come. But why didn't she feel that it was any better? The things here are all for you. I'll have someone send them to your school later on. Lin Jiej turned his head to look at the gourmet restaurant that was surrounded by colorful lights before continuing. I still have some other matters to attend to later, so I'll arrange a sightseeing bus for you to descend the mountain. It's parked at the entrance of the hotel, and our chauffeur is waiting at the parking lot at the foot of the mountain. You can just tell him where you want to go. After which, he turned to Shiryao and said, If there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave. After saying those words, Lin Jiej turned around. As he stepped into the hotel room, Shiryao shot a glance at Lin Jiej. She stared at his back and opened her mouth to call out to him. But when the words reached her mouth, she swallowed them back down. Chapter 709. The soft sound of the door closing caused Shiryao's body to shudder, jolting her out of her daze. She stared at the empty room, and her heart suddenly started beating furiously. She could clearly feel a sense of fear creeping up from the depths of her heart. It was only when that fear had seeped into every single one of her blood vessels and cells that Shiryao realized that she was truly afraid. Afraid that Lin Jiej would sever all ties with her just like that. Afraid that she would no longer have a Lin Jiej by her side. Shiryao stood in a daze on the balcony of the hotel room for a very long time. It was only when the cold night wind blew that she finally snapped out of her daze and slowly walked out of the room. Just as Lin Jiej had said, there was really a sightseeing bus waiting for her at the entrance of the hotel. As soon as she got off the bus at the foot of the mountain, the Lin family's chauffeur walked over and greeted, Miss Shir. Shiryao had to attend classes the next day, so she got on the bus and had the chauffeur send her back to G University. On the way back to the city, Shiryao's mind was in a mess. She seemed to be thinking about many things, but at the same time, it felt like she wasn't thinking about anything at all. By the time the Lin family's car slowly drove out of the parking lot, a car's headlights suddenly lit up in the darkness not too far away. Seated in the driver's seat, Xia Shangzhou glanced at Lin Jiege through the rearview mirror. Lin Jiege, who hadn't said a word or moved at all ever since he got on the bus, and he asked, "Boss, are we heading back to school?" As if a statue, Lin Jiege didn't respond at all. "Boss?" Xia Shangzhou asked once more, but Lin Jiege still didn't respond. Thus, he turned to Lu Binlai and asked, "Hello?" Lu Binlai was currently reading a novel on his phone, so he didn't hear Xia Shangzhou's words. Dissatisfied, Xia Shangzhou nudged Lu Binlai's arm and said, "Are you even a man? Why are you reading romance novels on your phone every day?" Caught off guard, Lu Binlai lost his grip on his phone under Xia Shangzhou's push, causing it to drop on his thigh. He turned around and glared at Xia Shangzhou in displeasure. "I'm just being studious. You're just a single tyrant who can't even meet the person he likes. So what do you know? Don't disturb me while I'm courting your grandma." As Lu Binlai spoke, he picked up his phone and stared at the screen once more. "Xia Shangzhou, granddaughter, I'm telling you, even if you read 100 romance novels, you still won't be able to woo Junior Langwan. That's because her sexual orientation is straight, and she doesn't like lesbians." Lu Binlai, "You can insult the men I like, but you can't insult the women your grandmother likes." Xia Shangzhou said, "Granddaughter, I'm not insulting you when I say that you like men. It's normal for women to like men." The two of them bickered for a long time before Xia Shangzhou remembered something important. "You've led me astray. Boss is ignoring me. What should we do now? Back to school?" Lu Binlai, "What else can we do? I can only go back to school. Also, what do you mean by being led astray by me? I'm not interested in you, so please watch your words. Don't drive if you don't agree with me." Xia Shangzhou replied, "Don't worry, I'm not that picky. No matter who I'm interested in, they won't touch my granddaughter." Lu Binlai, neither of them wanted to show weakness. While they were bickering, Xia Shangzhou started the car and drove to school. Chapter 7:10. All right. Xia Shangzhou was the first to respond to Lin Jiege's words. Since he was driving, he naturally passed the task to Lu Binlai and said, "Granddaughter, pass the water over to boss." Lu Binlai took out an unopened bottle of water and passed it over to Lin Jiege. At the same time, he rebuked Xia Shangzhou. "Do you know that the entire car stinks the moment you open your mouth? Is that so? If you didn't tell me earlier, I would have suffocated you to death." As he spoke, he began to sing while shaking his head and wagging his tail. "Calorie, calorie, 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 calorie is my natural enemy. Burn my calorie. Calorie, calorie, calorie." Lu Binlai picked his ears in response to Xia Shangzhou's ruckus before turning to look at Lin Jiege. Since Lin Jiege had just spoken, Lu Binlai dared to ask, "Boss, what's going on between you and little Junior?" Hearing those words, Xia Shangzhou immediately shut his mouth and pricked up his ears to look at Lin Jiege. A moment later, Xia Shangzhou still didn't hear Lin Jiege's voice, so he couldn't help but ask, "Boss, what's going on between you and little Junior? Also, why did you ask little Lai Lai and I to redo the preparations we made last time? Didn't you confess to little Junior previously? If I repeat it now, won't there be nothing new?" After drinking the water, Lin Jiege fell silent for a moment after hearing Xia Shangzhou's words. "I'm not confessing." Xia Shangzhou and Lu Binlai were stunned by his reply. "You're not confessing? Then what is it?" Faced with their bewilderment, Lin Jiege lowered his eyelids slightly. "I'm fulfilling her wish." Lu Binlai was even more confused. "Fulfilling?" Xia Shangzhou, "Fulfilling whose wish? Little Junior?" "Fulfilling her wish, and fulfilling mine as well. Fulfilling what he failed to accomplish the previous time around so that he wouldn't have any regrets. Fulfilling her unbridled love and unbridled hatred so that she wouldn't have any regrets." With this thought in mind, Lin Jiege moved his lips once more. "I've agreed to cancel our engagement." Lu Binlai was so shocked that he nearly threw his phone away. Annulment the engagement? Xia Shangzhou's shock wasn't any less than Lu Binlai's. He immediately stepped on the brakes, and after calming himself down, he stepped on the accelerator once more and asked, "Boss, Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Annulling the engagement. Do you know what this means? This means that you have nothing to do with her. She can live her own life without fear. I know. Lin Jiej's fingertips gently stroked the mineral water bottle as he continued, but she should live her life without any qualms. No one can dictate her life for no reason. Our engagement was decided by our elders, so I can't expect her to honor it just because I like her now. To me, she's important, and the life she wants is equally important. I can't let her suffer just to satisfy myself. Furthermore, she had already spent a lot of time with him. In the last beautiful moments of her youth, he was willing to let her live the life she wanted to live without any scruples. It was just like what he had said to them earlier. I'm fulfilling your wish. Indeed, it wasn't just taking possession of her, but fulfilling her wish as well. Lu Binlai, grandson. I said that you're a fool, but you're really a fool. Have you heard of this story before? A guy chases after a girl and sends her breakfast every morning at 6:00 sharp. After 100 days, the guy stops, and the girl starts to get restless. Boss is playing this trick. Chapter 712. Lin Jiej. Then I'll beat you up until you can't sit still. Amidst Lu Binlai's mocking laughter, Xia Shangzhou spoke up pitifully. Boss, you can't do this to me. Little Junior isn't under my control. If she doesn't sit still, there's no use beating me to death. Besides, I'm just saying, what if? What if you lose the bet? Compared to Xia Shangzhou, Lu Binlai had always been more determined to live. What if? Boss is so outstanding, how could he possibly lose? He'll definitely win. Hearing Lu Binlai's words, Xia Shangzhou finally recovered from his daze. He was just about to hug Lu Binlai's thigh, but before he could say a word, Lin Jiej had already spoken up. Do you think that winning or losing is important to me? Xia Shangzhou was taken aback by Lin Jiej's question. A moment later, Lin Jiej spoke up once more. Even if I lose, it's still a win to me. There could only be two possible outcomes to this gamble. First, his bold guess was right. She liked him and got together with him. As a result, he would be happy, and she would be happy. The second one, his bold guess was just his wishful thinking. In the end, she still didn't like him. But even so, at most, he would be sad, but she would still be happy to be able to live the life she wanted to live. Thus, winning or losing this gamble really didn't matter to him. Regardless of whether he won or lost, she would still be happy. At least, he wouldn't have any regrets. In the end, Lu Binlai reacted faster than Xia Shangzhou. What will you do if you really lose? What would he do if he really lost? Lin Jiej didn't respond to Lu Binlai's question. Instead, he silently tightened his grip around the mineral water bottle in his hand. If he really lost, what would he do? He didn't know. He had never thought about himself, only her. But there was one thing he was certain of. If he really lost, he would accompany her silently. He still had the identity of 111,111, just like that time at the clubhouse, when they parted on bad terms. When he realized that he had wronged her, he could use this identity to quietly protect her. Even if he couldn't accompany her till they grew old, he could at least protect her for the rest of her life. Actually, this was enough, wasn't it? But there is something that he said wrong on the mountaintop. He said, Yao Yao, I like you. Actually, it should be, Yao Yao, I love you. This time, Lin Jiej's actions were far faster than when he had announced the annulment of the engagement to Shi Yao at the clubhouse. Early the next morning, Shi Yao received quite a few calls. Some were from Grandpa Lin, some were from her parents. In any case, regardless of who it was, the first thing they asked her was, what's going on between her and Lin Jiej? Why did Lin Jiej suddenly say that he wanted to call off the engagement? Shi Yao sent Lin Jiej a message asking him if he had come clean with his family. Lin Jiej only replied to her two messages. The first one was, yes. The second message was, did they look for you? Shi Yao honestly told Lin Jiej about the phone call between Grandpa Lin and her parents, and after that, Lin Jiej stopped replying to her messages. Speaking of which, it was rather strange. Other than the first day when Grandpa Lin had called her a few times, no one from the Lin family other than her parents had come looking for her. Chapter 713. Initially, Yao's parents didn't call her frequently. However, after 4 to 5 days, perhaps due to some communication between the Lin clan and them, Yao's parents started taking turns to call her. It was only a short period of time, but Yao's phone never stopped ringing. By the time she was done with her lesson and was about to return the call, her phone had already run out of battery due to her parents' calls. Yao didn't bring a portable charger with her, so she headed to the canteen for lunch before returning to her dormitory room. While she was waiting for her phone to turn on, the landline in the dormitory room suddenly rang. Tian was the closest to the landline, so it only rang once before she swiftly picked up the call. "Hello? May I know who you're looking for?" "Oh, I'm here. Auntie, please wait a moment." Tian's voice was still very formal a moment ago, but in the next instant, it became exceptionally warm. She raised the landline to Yao and said, Yao, it's a call from your mother." Yao reached out to pick up the phone. As she was quite a distance away from the landline, she had to keep her body tilted to one side when she picked up the call. "Mom." Yao barely managed to utter a single word before her mother's reprimanding voice sounded from the other end of the call. Yao, I told you to go and coax Jedge, but you never did." Yao frowned, but she didn't say a word. "I've been calling you so many times over the past few days, reminding you over and over again. Why didn't you listen to a single word? Did you know that Grandpa Lin came to our house today? He brought a lot of gifts with him, apologizing to us. He said that he's going to call off the engagement just like that." Yao's fingers subconsciously tightened around the phone. It was no wonder her parents had been calling her so many times today. It turned out that Grandpa Lin had come to call off the engagement today. Lin Jedge actually managed to convince Grandpa Lin. Ever since that night at Mountain Changming, she had already known that he was going to cancel their engagement. It was just that she hadn't received any news from the elders, so she was still fine with it. But now that the matter had finally come to an end, she suddenly felt an emptiness in her heart. It was as if someone had dug a hole in it, and a cold gust of wind was rushing in. Yao, what exactly did you do to make old Master Lin insist on canceling the engagement? Your father said that he tried to persuade you, but old Master Lin said that there's no need. He said that they've let our family down. Yao, after old Master Lin left, your father flew into a rage and smashed a lot of things in the house. Before Yao's mother could finish her rambling, the phone in her hand had been snatched away, and Yao's father's voice could be heard on the other end. "Yao, what's wrong with you? How did you turn such a good thing into such a mess? Even a phoenix flying on a branch can be turned into a crow by you. Say, why are you so useless? Serves you right for being born poor. What a wastrel. Your grandfather left such a good marriage for you, and you still squander it. How did I end up with a daughter like you?" Her father's words were far sharper and harsher than her mother's. Yao lowered her eyes. She wanted to ask them which one of them was their biological child, but that didn't seem to be the case. Why did they always think that it was her fault when something like this happened? Chapter 7:14. This time, it was Yao's mother who replied, "Gold, checks, and a house account." Yao pursed her lips and said, "Keep those things safe and return them to Grandpa Lin later." "Return what?" "That's Grandpa Lin's compensation for the annulment of the marriage." Her father seemed to be standing a distance away from her mother's phone. After hearing her words, he bellowed in exasperation before continuing to hurl insults at her. Yao pretended that she didn't hear her father's harsh words and continued. "The one who had the marriage annulled is me, not you. So the compensation you're giving is also mine. I have the right to decide where those things should go." Her father grew even angrier, and his words became even more unbearable. "Also, I know that Grandpa Lin gave you a sum of money 6 years ago, so I've saved up some money. If you have any, help me pool them together and return them to Grandpa Lin." Ignoring her father, Yao said everything she wanted to say in a single breath before hanging up the phone. Not too long later, the dormitory room's phone rang once more. It was still Yao's mother's number, so Yao rejected the call and blacklisted her mother's number. By the time she returned to her desk and sat down, her phone, which had been charged for a while, had already switched on by itself. On the silent screen appeared a call from her mother. She didn't pick it up, but her mother insisted on calling her. This stalemate lasted for a while, And perhaps her mother also thought that she wouldn't pick up the call, so she started sending her messages instead. Yao Yao, don't get angry at your father. That's just how he is. Yao Yao, I apologize on your father's behalf. He was too harsh with his words earlier. Yao Yao, when Grandpa Lin came this morning, I could tell that he really wants you to marry Jiej. It seems like the problem lies with Jiej. Yao Yao, you should apologize to Jiej and have a good talk with him. Yao Yao, I'm an experienced person, so you must believe in me. You'll definitely be happy if you marry Jiej. Messages from her mother came in one after another, and Shi Yao had no idea what was bothering her. In any case, her heart was in turmoil. After enduring for a while, she decided to blacklist her mother's number from her phone as well. Her phone finally fell silent. Shi Yao thought that this would improve her mood a little, but after staring at the locked screen for a while, she realized that she was so flustered that she couldn't sit still anymore. She simply logged into the game to divert her thoughts. However, after she entered the game, she either forgot to parachute and was dropped by the plane, drifting into the sea and drowning, or after parachuting and landing, she stood there alone, either beaten to death or poisoned to death. As if she had lost her soul, Shi Yao played a few rounds of the game before backing out of the room. She alternated between reading novels and scrolling through Weibo, and just like that, she spent a long time killing her time. In the end, she couldn't even remember what novel she had read and what gossip she had seen on Weibo. What was wrong with her? His heart was in a mess, and he felt extremely uneasy. With such thoughts in mind, Shi Yao randomly tapped on the apps on her phone, hoping to see if there was anything that would attract her attention. But in the end, for some reason, her fingertips ended up tapping on her message with Lin Jiej. Chapter 7:15. Lin Jiej, it's Shi Yao. I'm looking for you to tell you that we're canceling our engagement. All right. This was the first time she had sent him a message ever since she had his phone number. She could still remember clearly that she had suffered from insomnia for a very long time before she made this decision. Are you free? If you are, let's meet in the forest behind G University's male dormitory at around 20 o'clock. This was the message that Lin Jiej had sent her on the night she told Liang Mumu that she was canceling her engagement with Lin Jiej. Even now, she could still remember the words that he had said. If I don't cancel my engagement with you, I'll write my name backwards. Are you Lin Jiej? What do you think? Grandfather. Shi Yao couldn't help but burst into laughter upon seeing this. That was because she had failed to resist the temptation of an apple and confessed her relationship with Lin Jiej to her roommates. Feeling guilty, she had sent him a message that night to explain herself, but he had replied with a lot of words. Overwhelmed by the favor, she had thought that it was her grandfather. Back then, he had even angrily called her and questioned her. Who are you calling grandfather? Why did you buy clothes for me? You asked for them. This was her first French class. He sat behind her and said that her clothes were ugly. In his house, they only had a rag to clean the toilet bowl. In a fit of anger, she told him that she was very poor and that even mice came to her house with tears in their eyes. He thought that she was ugly, so he bought her clothes. Then, he really bought a big box of clothes for her. I like you, Shi Yao. 1. I'm not playing games. 2. I've never lost in a game. 3. No one can force me to do something I don't want to do. 4. I'm not truth or dare. I'm truth or dare. You're serious? Yes, I'm serious. I really like you. This was the message he had sent her when they first descended from Mountain Changming. Back then, she had been frightened out of her wits. She couldn't believe that he liked her. You had a showdown with your family? Did they look for you? Yes. Grandpa Lin and my parents called me several times this morning, asking me what's going on. Your auntie and your father also called me. A few days ago, when they had come down from Mount Changming, he had sent her a text message. It was also the last message they had exchanged. By the time she finished reading through the messages, she realized that there were actually so many memories between her and Lin Jiej. Regardless of whether it was in Beijing or Chengdu, when she had a stomachache, when he carried her to the hospital, or in Shenzhen, when she went to watch the competition, when she received a call from Sisjai, when she went to pick him up from the streets after losing his wallet and his phone battery. She remembered all of it clearly. It was as if it had just happened yesterday. Why would she remember everything that had happened between her and Lin Jiej so clearly? Shi Yao stared at her phone screen and pondered for a moment. Then, she vaguely seemed to have understood something. The reason why she was so distracted and restless at this moment was because they had really broken off the engagement. She, who had wholeheartedly wanted to break off the engagement at first. Now, she was actually not willing to do it anymore. Unwilling. Shi Yao's fingers, which were holding onto her phone, began to tremble slightly. Chapter 7:16. I don't wanna. Shi Yao's fingers, which were holding onto her phone tightly, began to tremble. No wonder when he told her to cancel the engagement, she didn't feel relieved. Instead, she felt a strong sense of panic. No wonder she had been inexplicably irritated and unhappy for the past few days. She couldn't bring herself to do anything. It turned out that she was afraid that she would really cut all ties with him and never have anything to do with him again. She had never realized how important he was to her in the past, but it was only now that she realized just how important he was to her. Important. Shi Yao had no idea how long she had been staring blankly at her phone like a wooden block. All she knew was that her phone's ringtone had pulled her back to reality. As there had been so many calls from her parents over the past few days, Shi Yao had forgotten that she had blacklisted their numbers. She instinctively thought that it was still them, and she subconsciously wanted to hang up the call. However, just as her finger was about to touch the screen, she noticed that the caller ID was from Grandpa Lin. Shi Yao quickly changed her action of hanging up the phone to picking up the call. She raised the phone to her ear and called out, "Grandpa Lin." There was only silence on the other end of the call. Shi Yao waited patiently for a moment, and seeing that Grandpa Lin wasn't saying anything, she spoke up once more, "Grandpa Lin?" This time, a heavy sigh sounded from the other end of the call, following which, Grandpa Lin spoke up, Yao, I'm sorry. Why would Grandpa Lin say such words? Shi Yao was completely bewildered by Grandpa Lin's words. Before she could say anything, Grandpa Lin had already spoken up on the other end of the phone. Yao, it's all my fault. I've let you down for not keeping that brat in check. What in the world is going on? Grandpa Lin. Shi Yao was getting more and more confused as she listened on, so she subconsciously opened her mouth to ask Grandpa Lin why he would say such a thing. However, she had only said 3 words when Old Master Lin, who was on the other end of the line, gritted his teeth and said, Yao, don't worry. I won't let that brat off. I definitely won't let him off. He is a disgrace to our family. Yao, it's fine if you don't want someone like him. In any case, it's his loss that he missed out on you. Brat, Shi Yao frowned. She knew that Grandpa Lin was referring to Lin Jiej. Just what in the world did Lin Jiej say to Grandpa Lin? What did he do to make Grandpa Lin so angry? Grandpa Lin, who had been adamant all this while, finally relented? On the other end of the call, Grandpa Lin berated Lin Jiej for a very long time, but he didn't explain what had happened. Out of curiosity, Shi Yao couldn't help but ask, Grandpa Lin, what's wrong with Lin Jiej? Chapter 7:17. Shi Yao knew that Grandpa Lin was intentionally changing the topic, but she also knew that Grandpa Lin was speaking from the bottom of his heart. All these years, Grandpa Lin had truly treated her well, even better than her biological parents. So, as Shi Yao listened to Grandpa Lin's words, her heart softened, and a hint of warmth surfaced in her eyes. Grandpa Lin, thank you. Silly child, there's no need to thank me. I'm the one who has let you down. I didn't teach that brat well. Grandpa Lin sighed deeply. Yao, we still have the chefs at home. They remember the dishes you like very well, and you also know the phone number of the chauffeur. Feel free to order him around, including Beijing World Hotel. You can go there if you like. Put it on my tab, so don't stand on ceremony. Also, Yao, remember to pay me a visit whenever you're free. Don't forget to visit me just because you're no longer related to that brat. Hearing those words, Shi Yao's eyes couldn't help but redden. Grandpa Lin, don't worry. I'll pay you a visit whenever I'm free. You have to take care of your health too. Don't get angry all the time. All right. Yao is still the most considerate one. Yao, you're the best. Grandpa Lin repeated the word, good, several times before reluctantly hanging up the call. It wasn't that Shi Yao wasn't curious about how Lin Jie managed to convince Grandpa Lin to agree to annul their engagement, but Grandpa Lin refused to say a word even after hanging up the call. Shi Yao couldn't possibly force Grandpa Lin to talk about it, so she eventually gave up on the thought. Other than the one call from Grandpa Lin on the afternoon of his visit to Shi Yao's house, Shi Yao didn't receive any other news regarding the Lin family for the next few days. Of course, this Lin family also included Lin Jie. In contrast to the silence at the Lin family, Shi Yao's parents' side was much livelier. Unable to get through to her phone, her parents came to the academy to look for her. Initially, Shi Yao managed to meet them a few times. Her father had a bad temper, and he would lash out at her the moment he saw her. Her mother, on the other hand, had a mild-mannered personality, but she would always try to persuade her to look for Lin Jie to redeem her relationship with Lin Jie. Shi Yao's heart was cold and vexed, so regardless of whether it was her father or her crying mother, she chose to avoid them. Such days lasted for about half a month. Over the past half a month, Shi Yao's life hadn't changed much. She would attend classes, tutor her students, and when she was free, she would either have Mr. Numbers teach her how to play games step by step, or she would play with Juice's expert squad. During this period of time, Team 21 participated in the tournament a second time, and just like the first time, they won the championship. As a member of Team 21, Shi Yao received around 300,000 renminbi. However, in this period of time, Shi Yao's gains weren't limited to just the 300,000 RMB. Her gaming skills had improved a little too. While she wasn't as skilled as Expert or Juice, she wasn't so weak that she would be trampled on by others in the tournament. Chapter 718. He had really severed all contact with her, and it was even more thorough than the time they parted on bad terms at the clubhouse. Back then, Lin Jie was still on the school forum. Even though they weren't in contact, she could still hear a few things about him from the other students. But now that he was in his 4th year, he rarely returned to the school anymore. As a result, there were many things about him that weren't known by the students in the school. As a result, there were no longer any posts about him on the school forum. There were many times when Shi Yao would still think of Lin Jie. It was said that time was the best medicine, but Shi Yao realized that there were some things that didn't fade with time. On the contrary, they became clearer and more profound. As autumn entered Beijing, the weather grew colder and colder with each passing day. By the end of the 10th month, Shi Yao was already wearing a jacket over her sweater. In truth, the end of the 10th month was also an ordinary day for Shi Yao, but this year, it became a little more important to her. This was because Lin Jie's birthday was on the 27th of October. Shi Yao had prepared a birthday present for Lin Jie half a month in advance. She had promised him this birthday present a long time ago. She remembered that it was her birthday that day, and he had begged her to accompany him to buy a present for Sis Jai. However, as he wasn't able to contact Sis Jai, he ended up giving the present to her instead. As it was too expensive, she suggested that she should just treat it as a birthday present and return it to him on his birthday. She knew when his birthday was, because Grandpa Lin would always invite her to his birthday banquet every year. It was just that he had never noticed her presence. But on that day, he had asked her if she knew when his birthday was, and in the next second, he had eagerly revealed his birthday date. Back then, she had prepared a birthday present in advance so that she could hand it to him during his birthday banquet. But now, their engagement had been annulled, and his birthday was getting closer and closer. Yet, Grandpa Lin didn't call to invite her to his birthday banquet like he did in the past. Shi Yao had been thinking about how she could give Lin Jie his present all the way until the morning of Lin Jie's birthday. Unable to come up with any good ideas, she gave Lin Jie a call. Lin Jie was probably in the middle of a meeting, so she didn't pick up the call and hung up. Very soon, she received a message. "Give me 10 minutes. Lin Jie was very punctual, and 10 minutes later, Shi Yao's phone rang. Picking up the call, before Shi Yao could even call out, "Sis Jie," Lin Jie had already spoken up. "Darling Yao Yao, is there anything you need from me?" Right after Lin Jie said those words, Shi Yao heard Lin Jie's swift and decisive voice saying, "Send this contract to Director Zhang, then head over to Mr. Xia's place to get the documents I want." Shi Yao waited until Lin Jie's voice had died down before she spoke up. "Sis Jie, are you very busy? If you're busy, we can talk later." No, 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 I'm fine. I'll be right back. While replying to Shi Yao's words, Lin Jiai made a call on her landline. Navigator, where's Boss Sun's contract? Didn't you say it was on the table? Why didn't I see it? I'll give you 3 minutes to bring it to me. Chapter 719. Yao Yao, I'm really sorry. I had a lot of things to take care of today, so I promised you that I'd call you back in 10 minutes. I was afraid that you might get anxious, so I called you before I was done. I even made you wait for so long. It's all right, Sis Jiai. Shi Yao gently replied to Lin Jiai's words before getting to the main point. Sis Jiai, I'm calling you because I need your help with something. Before Shi Yao could say what it was, Lin Jiai had already replied, Sure, sure. Tell me, Yao Yao, isn't it Lin Jiej's birthday today? Is it ATM's birthday today? Lin Jiai asked doubtfully. After which, she seemed to have flipped through her calendar for a moment before replying, Oh, it really is ATM's birthday today. Lin Jiai's words left Shi Yao at a loss as to how she should respond. Lin Jiai, what's wrong? Yao Yao, do you want to celebrate ATM's birthday with him? And no. Shi Yao hurriedly replied to Lin Jiai's words. It's like this. I promised him that I would give him a present on his birthday. That is it convenient for you? If it's convenient, I'll send the present over to you later, and you can help me pass it to him. Why go through so much trouble? You can just give it to him. Lin Jiai's words trailed off. But even if she didn't say it out loud, Shi Yao knew what she was trying to say. Couldn't you just give it to him directly? Shi Yao didn't say a word. Lin Jiai was silent for a moment on the other end of the phone. Then, seemingly coming to a realization, she asked, Yao Yao, are you and Jiej ignoring each other now? Shi Yao was silent for a moment before replying with a soft However, Shi Yao didn't want to linger on this topic for too long, so she quickly added, Sis Jiai, about what I said earlier, Yao Yao, you should know that I've always taken your affairs very seriously, but I'm afraid that I won't be able to help you this time around. Lin Jiai seemed to have encountered something extremely difficult, and she suddenly paused halfway through her words. It took a long while before she finally spoke up once more, but this time around, she asked Yao Yao, Yao Yao, do you know nothing about Jiej's recent situation? An ominous premonition suddenly crept into Shi Yao's heart. What's wrong with him recently? Did something happen? It's not that something happened, it's just, forget it, I will tell you. Anyway, I am not a person who can hide things, but Yao Yao, you just pretend you didn't hear it, because Grandpa said, this is our family's dirty linen. Family's dirty linen must not be spread. Lin Jiai reminded Shi Yao over and over again not to tell anyone about it before she continued. Roughly 20 days ago, Jiej returned home and told Grandpa that he had something to discuss with him. After that, it was about the annulment of your engagement. Grandpa flew into a rage and firmly disagreed with it. He even punished him to kneel in his study for an entire afternoon so that he could reflect on his actions. After that, my aunt felt sorry for him, so she went to ask him what was going on and why he would suddenly annul his engagement with you. He refused to say a word, but I'm sure you know about it. Grandpa, my aunt, and my father all called you to ask what was going on. Chapter 720. Lin Jiai paused for a moment before she continued. Jiej said that when he went out to play with Liang Jusi, he got drunk, and in a daze, he ended up doing something with a girl. Even though Lin Jiai was trying to be subtle with her words, Shi Yao still got the gist of it. Her fingers subconsciously tightened their grip around her phone. He gave the girl a sum of money, thinking that the matter would be over. However, who could have thought that the girl would come looking for him a few days ago with a medical report in her hand, saying that she was pregnant and that it was his child. When grandfather heard those words, he flew into a rage. He pointed at Jiej and scolded him for being a scoundrel. Back then, grandfather's face reddened in anger, and he ignored Jiej for 3 whole hours. Eventually, he went to look for him and told him to abort the child while it was still young and pay the girl a sum of money. That was the end of the matter. Actually, we all thought that the matter would be over that day. But Jiej said that the girl had a unique constitution that prevented her from having an abortion. If she were to have an abortion, she would never be able to get pregnant for the rest of her life. More importantly, the girl happened on August 30th, and she happened to be 2 months pregnant at the moment. The timing matched perfectly, so it was his child. Furthermore, he couldn't possibly ruin her life just to distance himself from her. But if he didn't allow the girl to abort the child, that would be unfair to you as well. In the end, it was a matter concerning the girl's life. So grandfather was conflicted for several days before he finally went to your house to annul the marriage. Grandfather really likes you. That's why he was so angry. At the same time, he also felt that Jej's actions were really foolish. Grandfather dotes on Jej very much, so he rarely beats him up. The few times he did beat him up was when he refused to agree to the engagement with you no matter what, and he ended up getting beaten up by grandfather several times. After so many years, grandfather finally beat him up once more, and his blows were quite heavy as well. There were even bloodstains on his clothes, and grandfather was truly infuriated. Back then, he chased him out of the house, saying that he wouldn't allow him to return home. He even said that he would never acknowledge that girl as his granddaughter-in-law. Recently, no one at home has dared to mention him, and the moment they do, my grandfather's blood pressure starts rising. It's been almost half a month, and Jej hasn't returned home at all. Grandfather also forbade us from visiting him, and he didn't hold a birthday party for him either. Anyway, Yao Yao, I really want to help you, but I really can't. If grandfather were to find out that I went to look for him, he'd get angry again. Grandfather has been on a 4-drip for the past 2 days. So, Yao Yao, I'm really sorry. Shi Yao quickly recovered from her daze and said, It's fine, Sis Jai. Her mind was in a complete mess, so before Lin Jai could say anything else, she had already said goodbye and hung up the call. She went through Lin Jai's words in her mind once more before she began to ponder over the matter seriously. It was no wonder the Lin clan didn't look for her anymore. It turned out that he had helped her. And the pregnant girl. August 30th. August 30th was the day she and Desolate Year met on August 30th. She was stood up for no reason, and it was raining heavily that day. She went to several supermarkets to buy ingredients for hot pot and went back to his house to eat hot pot with him. So, he was with her that night. How could he have gotten drunk? How could he have gotten another girl pregnant? Chapter 721. Sis Jai's words earlier were very detailed, so much so that she even had the exact timing of her words. If anyone else were to hear those words, they would probably believe it to be true, right? Putting aside others, even she would have thought that it was true without the precise date of 30th of August. Just that, why would Lin Jej make such a huge lie? Just as this thought flashed across Shi Yao's mind, her fingertips suddenly trembled. It was no wonder Grandpa Lin, who had steeled his heart for her to be with him all these years, would relent. It was no wonder Grandpa Lin kept apologizing to her on the phone that day. It was no wonder Sis Jai kept reminding her to keep it a secret before telling her the entire story. It turned out that in order to return her peace and freedom, Lin Jej had splashed such a huge basin of dirty water on her. She had sent him a message that day, and he had replied with, "They're looking for you?" After that, he had ignored her completely. She thought that they had lost contact with each other just like that, but unbeknownst to her, he had actually endured so much for her. Getting drunk and impregnating a girl. To the Lin family, who had always placed great emphasis on education, this kind of thing was truly absurd. Not to mention Grandpa Lin. Even Uncle Lin and Auntie Lin would probably be enraged. Sis Jai said that Grandpa Lin had beaten him up and chased him out of the clan, not even holding a birthday banquet for him this year. Even now, Grandpa Lin still forbade anyone from the Lin clan from visiting him. In the past, he would always be surrounded by many people on this day to celebrate his birthday, but this year, Lin Jej, he's doing this for me. The more Shi Yao thought about it, the more upset she felt. With a wet face, He Tian walked out of the bathroom and wiped her face with a napkin as she asked Shi Yao, "Yao Yao, we're going shopping this afternoon. Are you coming along?" Shi Yao recovered from her daze, and she hesitated for a few seconds before shaking her head. "It's fine. I still have to go to my student's place for supplementary lessons in the afternoon." "All right then. What about tonight? Do you want to have dinner together? We'll see how it goes then." Shi Yao replied to He Tian before her mind wandered off once more. After He Tian, Jiang Yu, and Lung Wan went shopping, Shi Yao also tidied herself up a little before heading to her student's place. It was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon when they finished the supplementary lessons. After leaving the student's residence, Yao passed by a convenience store to buy some water. At that moment, she found an exquisitely packaged cardboard box in her backpack. This was the birthday present she had prepared for Lin Jie. Yao stared at the gift box in a daze for quite a while. It was only when the owner of the convenience store urged her to pay the bill that she hurriedly gathered her chaotic thoughts, opened WeChat, scanned the QR code, and paid the bill. Then, she picked up her water bottle and made her way back to school absent-mindedly. Along the way, Yao passed by a cake shop. Through the transparent glass, she could see that the cupboards were filled with all kinds of colorful cakes. Yao had no idea what was going through her mind. She had no idea how long she had been pacing around the entrance of the cake shop, and she couldn't even remember how she had walked into the shop. In any case, by the time she finally came to her senses, she was already standing in the cake shop. The attendant was currently packing up the cake for her, whispering to her softly about the price and asking her how many plates she wanted. Chapter 722. By the time she came out, the sky was already dark. The streetlights along the streets were lit up one after another. Yao stood by the roadside for a moment before making her way over to the bus stop not too far away. She raised her head and stared at the bus stop for a moment. Then, with the cake in her hand, she waited patiently for around 10 minutes. When the bus she was on finally arrived, she joined the crowd and boarded the bus. 6 in the morning was the peak hour of the night, and it was the most congested time of the day. The bus staggered for around an hour before it finally arrived at Yao's destination. She walked for around 700 meters before arriving at the entrance of Lin Jie's apartment. It was fortunate that she had lived here for a month in the past, so she had entered and exited the place frequently. The security guard remembered her, and upon seeing her, not only did he not stop her, he even chatted with her familiarly for a while before opening the door for her. Lin Jie's apartment was located in a large area, and there were plenty of greenery around it. It took Yao more than 10 minutes before she arrived at Lin Jie's apartment. She raised her head and counted from floor to floor, and when she reached the 21st floor, she realized that Lin Jie's apartment was completely dark. He told me that he wouldn't be staying at the Lin family manor, but here. Even though he had renovated the other properties, he had never stayed there before, and he wasn't used to it either. So, he's busy with something and isn't back yet? Yao surveyed her surroundings before finding a chair to sit on. She placed the cake down and sat down, playing with her phone as she waited. Time passed neither quickly nor slowly. Unknowingly, a notification popped up on Yao's phone saying that it had less than 20% battery left. Only then did Yao take a look at the time. It was already 10 o'clock? Lin Jie isn't back yet? With this thought in mind, Yao raised her head to look at the 21st floor, but the windows were still dark. Yao didn't bother with her phone anymore. Instead, she raised her head and stared at the window of Lin Jie's apartment for a very long time. Only then did she realize what she was doing at this very moment. She couldn't help but buy a cake, couldn't help but come to his house, couldn't help but wait for him downstairs for almost 3 hours. This was something she would never have done in the past, but today, without even realizing it, she did it all. When did he start to have such a big influence on her? But all along, she was the one who insisted on canceling the engagement. Now that they had already done so, why was she running to his apartment like this? Yao suddenly felt a little fearful. She looked at Lin Jie's dark window before turning to look at the cake in her hand. After a long moment of hesitation, she finally stood up and left with the cake. She walked along the same path toward the entrance of the apartment, but before she could even take 2 steps, a car suddenly appeared in front of her. The headlights were so bright that she couldn't even open her eyes. She quickly moved to the other side, but due to the blinding light, she had to raise her hand to shield. It didn't take long for the car to reach her side before it drove past her. When the blinding light disappeared, Yao put down her hand and raised her foot once more. But before she could take another step, the car that had just driven past her reversed and stopped right beside her. Chapter 723. Before Yao could recover from her shock, Lin Jie, who was seated in the car, suddenly called out, "Yao Yao?" He seemed to be surprised to see her here. and there was an indiscernible hint of astonishment in his nonchalant voice. Yao's heart skipped a beat upon hearing Lin Jie's voice, and her fingers subconsciously tightened their grip on the cake bag in her hand. She looked at him silently. He waited for a moment before turning to the driver and saying, "I'll be getting off here. You can go back." "All right, Mr. Lin." The driver was about to open the door for Lin Jie, but by the time he unbuckled his seatbelt, Lin Jie had already pushed open the car door and walked over to Yao. After the driver turned around and left, Lin Jie finally spoke up once more. Yao, what are you doing here?" After saying those words, his gaze moved down her face, and it was only then that he noticed the cake bag in her hand. It was his birthday today, and she appeared at his place with a cake. Could she be here to look for him? Lin Jie stared at the cake bag in Yao's hand for a moment before he turned his gaze back to her eyes. With a hint of uncertainty in his voice, he asked, "Are you here to look for me?" Yao, who hadn't been able to think of a way to explain her appearance to Lin Jie, hesitated for a moment before nodding her head and replying with an. Her voice was very light and soft, like a feather, lightly brushing against Lin Jie's heart. It was just a light touch, but Lin Jie couldn't help but be overjoyed. However, he didn't dare to make it too obvious, so he tried his best to control the emotions on his face. He stared at her for a long while before asking, "Why aren't you going up then? It's a little cold at night in late autumn. What if you fall sick from the cold? I've never changed the password to my house, so you can just wait for me at my place the next time you come. How long have you been waiting here?" In the end, Lin Jie was still too agitated that he couldn't stop talking. It took him a while before he realized that he had spoken a little too much, so he quickly got to the point. "Do you want to go upstairs?" Yao's words had nothing to do with Lin Jie at all. "You were drinking?" "Oh, I had a work appointment tonight, so I drank a little." Yao didn't say a word. It was no wonder she could smell the faint scent of alcohol on his body when the wind blew by earlier. He was so busy that he only came back now. Then, his birthday. Seeing that Yao had fallen silent once more, Lin Jie spoke up once more. "It's too cold here. Shall we head upstairs first?" Initially, Yao had no intention of following Lin Jie up the stairs, but after hearing that he was busy, she changed her mind. She nodded lightly before following Lin Jie into the apartment building. After returning home, Lin Jie opened the shoe cabinet and took out a pair of slippers for Yao before changing into his own. Yao stared at the pair of shoes that Lin Jie had placed in front of her for a very long time. Those were the shoes she had worn when she had stayed at his place for a month. It had been a long time since then, but he still kept them. However, they were much cleaner than before. He must have arranged for someone to specially clean them. Chapter 724. It's nothing. Yao hurriedly reined in her thoughts and shook her head at Lin Jie before bending over to change her shoes. Without thinking too much into it, Lin Jie told her, "I'll go get 2 cups of water before heading to the dining room." After changing her shoes, Yao walked into the living room, and her attention was immediately drawn to the pillows on the sofa. Of the 2 pillows, one was in the shape of a pink heart while the other was in the shape of a light blue star. During the month she was staying at his place, she had gone shopping in a nearby shop out of boredom. She had bought them in passing, and after returning home, she had casually tossed them onto the sofa, never to be used again. Pillows were cheap, only several dozen RMB, so she didn't take them with her when she left. She thought that Lin Jie would probably get rid of them later on, but who could have thought that they would still be here? These 2 pillows were completely out of place compared to the sofas he had custom-made from overseas, but they were still neatly placed on the sofa. Yao seemed to understand something, and a moment later, she shifted her gaze away from the pillows. The strawberries on the balcony were growing well. She was the one who had bought the strawberries too. Back then, she had seen someone selling flowers on a cart by the street, so she had picked up a strawberry from among the beautiful greenery. Since she was going to buy something, she should at least buy something that could be eaten in the future. Not only the strawberries, the vase and cup she had bought were still there too. Eventually, Yao's gaze fell on the door to the guest bedroom. After a moment of contemplation, she decided to walk over. The door wasn't locked, so she pushed it open. What greeted her eyes was the exact same scene as when she had stayed here. The bedsheets were the same as the one she had slept in, The cloud nightlight she had bought on the bedside table was still there. The ice cream pillow she had bought online was still on the pillow on the bed. Her toothpaste and toothbrush were still there in the bathroom, and her favorite hand sanitizer, shampoo, and shower gel were still the same as when she had left. It was really as she had imagined. Everything related to her, be it usable or unusable, valuable or worthless, was still there. In fact, many of the things were placed in the same way as her habits back then. It was as if she had never left this place. Why would he keep her things? Is he keeping it as a souvenir? Yao couldn't tell what she was feeling at this moment. It was a little warm, a little happy, and a little sad. Yao. But before she could wallow in her complicated emotions for too long, Lin Jiej's voice sounded behind her. She responded and hurried out. I went to the washroom. In the end, this wasn't her home, and it was impolite for her to barge into her bedroom without permission. Thus, she decided to explain herself. Lin Jiej didn't seem to mind it at all. He placed the bubbling cup of water on the table and said, "Have some hot water." Yao replied with an as she walked over. It was only when she got closer that she realized that what Lin Jiej had poured her wasn't hot water, but brown sugar ginger tea. All of a sudden, she felt as if she had been struck by something and her chest softened into a ball. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. He had always remembered her menstrual period. Back when she lived at his house, he would make her brown sugar ginger tea for a few days, and today happened to be her menstrual period. Chapter 725. He had already removed his jacket. Most likely, he had rolled up his sleeves when he was brewing the brown sugar ginger tea earlier. Yao turned around, and before she could say a word, she saw a clear wound on his exposed arm. The wound had already scabbed over, but it still looked a little ghastly. Yao suddenly recalled the words that Sis Jai had told her. Staring at Lin Jiej's arm, she couldn't help but ask, You were beaten up by Grandpa Lin, weren't you? Hearing Yao's question, Lin Jiej hurriedly rolled up his sleeves. However, he still managed to catch the main point in her words. How did you know that it was Grandpa Lin? A second after he asked the question, he seemed to have understood what she meant, and he asked, You knew about it? Even though his words were ambiguous, Yao knew that he was referring to the excuses he had come up with for Grandpa Lin. Thus, she nodded and said, I gave Sis Jai a call, and she told me about it. After 2 seconds of silence, Yao spoke up once more. Why did you lie to Grandpa Lin like that? Wouldn't you end up causing others to misunderstand you? As Yao spoke, she suddenly found herself at a loss for words. Yao, I'll definitely fulfill my promise to you. But you can't allow yourself to be wronged. Am I? Lin Jiej's brows suddenly relaxed, and he smiled. I don't think that I'm wronged at all. Lin Jiej's nonchalant words left Yao's eyes welling up with tears. She subconsciously lowered her head, maintaining her quiet and obedient demeanor for a long while before she finally said softly, Lin Jiej, thank you. All right, I did it out of my own free will. As Lin Jiej spoke, his gaze fell on the cake box on the table. What's that? A cake? Hearing Lin Jiej's words, Yao raised her head to look at the cake. After which, she picked up her bag and took out an exquisitely wrapped box from it. She passed it to Lin Jiej and said, This is for you. The cake is for you too. Mine? Lin Jiej's eyes were brimming with delight. Due to his agitation, his fingers were trembling slightly as he took the box. It's your birthday today, and I promised you that I would give you a present. Yao explained softly before adding, I was the one who chose the present, so I didn't know whether you would like it or not. Before Yao could finish her words, Lin Jiej had already interjected, I like it. Lin Jiej raised his wrist to take a look at the time and said, It's not 12 yet, and it just so happens that I haven't had my birthday cake yet. Since you brought a cake, why don't we cut a cake together? Yao didn't turn him down. Lin Jiej pulled the cake closer to him, tore it open, and inserted the candles. Before blowing out the candles, Yao earnestly wished Lin Jiej a happy birthday, and Lin Jiej even placed his palms together devoutly to make a wish. When he was about to blow out the candles and cut the cake, Yao couldn't help but ask curiously, What did you wish for? Lin Jie's cutting of the cake came to a halt. He didn't say anything, but in his mind, he recalled the wish he had just made. His wish was that he could hear her say happy birthday to him next year. The next year he was talking about was not the next year. The next year he was talking about was the next year after 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 the next year, until there was no next year in his life. Chapter 726. Seeing that Lin Jie was silent for a long time, Shiyao asked once more, "It can't be that you didn't make a wish, right?" "I made a wish." Lin Jie snapped out of his daze. He controlled his expression well, not revealing the slightest hint of emotion. He continued cutting the cake as he casually answered Shiyao's question. Shiyao instinctively wanted to repeat the question that she had just asked. However, barely after those words reached the tip of her tongue, Lin Jie calmly spoke up once more. "But didn't they say that wishes won't come true once spoken? You still believe in such things?" Shiyao was surprised. Based on her impression of Lin Jie, he wasn't someone who believed in such unrealistic things. Lin Jie replied with a light as he passed a slice of cake over to Shiyao. Believe. It wasn't because he relied on such words. Rather, it was because the wish was related to her. Even if he knew that it was unrealistic, he was still willing to fulfill it. By the time they finished the cake, it was already getting late. Naturally, Shiyao requested to leave. As Lin Jie had drunk a little, he couldn't drive, so he hailed a taxi to send Shiyao back to school. The taxi stopped at the entrance of the school, but Lin Jie didn't get off. Shiyao said, "I'll be leaving first," before pushing the car door open. When she got off the car, just as she was about to close the door, Lin Jie suddenly called out, "Yao Yao?" Shiyao bent down to look at Lin Jie, who was sitting at the back of the car. His eyes were very bright, and there seemed to be a hint of a smile hidden in the depths of his eyes. He seemed to be very happy. Under Lin Jie's gaze, Shiyao's heart skipped a beat, following which, she felt as if she had been electrocuted, and a numbing sensation spread across her body. She was just about to reply with but in an instant, her lips fell silent. Lin Jie stared at her face for a moment before saying softly, "Drive safe on the way back to the dormitory." Hearing Lin Jie's words, Shiyao swiftly recovered from her daze and replied with She impatiently waved goodbye to Lin Jie, closed the car door, and hurriedly dashed back to the campus. Without turning back, Shiyao could hear her heart pounding in her chest. Thump, thump, thump. Every beat was clear and forceful. After sending Shiyao off with his gaze, Lin Jie turned to the driver and said, "Return to where we were earlier." "Okay." The driver answered and stepped on the accelerator. He called out to her just now to tell her that he was very happy that she remembered his birthday and came to celebrate it with him. But when the words reached his mouth, he forcefully suppressed them. It was better not to express some emotions too obviously, lest he acted too rashly and scared her. After all, he wasn't sure what she really thought of him. What if what she did today was done in a situation where she didn't even know what was going on? What he said would startle her. Not only would she not face it, but she would also start to avoid it. Wouldn't that be even worse? Chapter 727. On the second day, after Lin Jie's birthday, Mr. Numbers shared a link to the tournament with Shiyao. The prize money for this tournament was the highest they had ever received in the history of the tournament, at a whopping 8 million renminbi. Most of the teams participating in the tournament this time around were substitute players from professional squads. While some of them might not have participated in any professional matches before, they had sparred with professional players who had participated in official tournaments. Be it in terms of awareness or maneuvering, they were much stronger than the opponents they had faced before. Thus, after registering for the tournament, Mr. Numbers would grab Shiyao to train whenever he had the time. A week later, on the weekend, the tournament began. In truth, the rules of the tournament were more or less the same. The only difference was the number of points earned from killing a player and the number of points earned from winning a chicken dinner. In the previous matches, under Mr. Numbers' special training, Shiyao didn't drag the team down much. However, perhaps due to the huge prize money and the fact that there were so many experts in the tournament, Shi Yao's performance in the elimination round was no different from the first time she had participated in a tournament. Fortunately, Mr. Numbers was as steady as ever. Even so, they still managed to get into the finals as the third place in the elimination round. The finals was set for 3 in the afternoon of the second day. Shi Yao, Mr. Numbers, Expert, and Juice went online on time and connected their microphones to prepare for battle. In the first round, Mr. Numbers was the only one who survived. He didn't manage to win the chicken dinner and ended up in second place. In the second round, Mr. Numbers died very early on, and Shi Yao also died shortly after. Juice and Expert managed to sneak into the finals, but they weren't able to get a placing, so they didn't gain any points. There were a total of 5 rounds in the finals. After the second round, Shi Yao took a look at the rankings. While Team 21 wasn't at the bottom, it was still outside the top 10. If they allowed the other teams to pull away from them in the third round, they would really be out of the running for the championship. Just as Shi Yao thought that there was no hope left in the tournament, the reticent Mr. Numbers suddenly took the initiative to give voice commands for the entire match. In the third round, Team 21 successfully won the chicken dinner and entered the top 10. In the fourth round, Team 21 still managed to win the chicken dinner and successfully leaped to second place. The team ranked first was called Star Fate Team. Shi Yao wasn't too familiar with the other squads formed by substitute players, but she had heard of this particular squad. This was because there were 3 members in this squad, and they were the substitutes of AE Squadron. 2 of the substitutes had inherited Legends teachings, and it was revealed on the forums that they were the future stars of AE Squadron, personally groomed by God L. The difference in points between them and the Star Fate Battle Team wasn't that big. However, although the Star Fate Battle Team didn't get the chicken dinner in the last 2 rounds, they had a lot of kills in each round. Their ranking was also very high. One round was second, and the other was fourth. In the 5th round, there was only one way for them to defeat the Star Fate squad, and that was to continue to get the first place. Because the 5th round was the round that would decide the outcome of the match, every team was especially serious and cautious. Even after entering the final circle, there were still 32 people alive. Chapter 728. As the other team member was outside the safe zone, he was late in escaping from the blue circle. On top of that, the damage he suffered in the final third of the blue circle was particularly severe. Just as he was about to enter the safe zone, he was poisoned to death. Thus, only Mr. Numbers and 2 members of Star Fate were left. It was a very small circle, and Mr. Numbers was facing 2 professional players at once. It was clear that the difficulty was high. Just as Shi Yao thought that the chances of her winning the game were close to 0, Mr. Numbers seemed to have a deep understanding of the other party's fighting style. He easily located one of them and killed him. The commentator probably didn't expect Mr. Numbers to be so impressive, and his words were filled with agitation. The safe zone shrunk once more, leaving only a 2-story building within the safe zone. This time, without even needing to determine the location, it was clear that the last member of Star Fate was on the 2nd floor. Mr. Numbers and the other members of Star Fate were moving back and forth, one upstairs and the other downstairs. Shi Yao, who had switched to Mr. Numbers' vision, saw red footprints constantly lighting up on the minimap. Neither of them seemed to have any intention of attacking, and just as the battle was about to reach a stalemate, Mr. Numbers suddenly dashed toward the staircase. Shi Yao thought that he was going to storm the building, but barely after taking 2 steps, he suddenly backed down and leaped out of the window. It was as if he had expected that someone would leap out of the window, so a second after leaping out of the window, he was already firing furiously at the players in front of him. While Shi Yao was still in a daze, a page with the words, "Winner's Chicken Dinner," appeared on the screen. It can't be, right? Is that even possible? If Mr. Numbers had been able to determine a person's location based on their footsteps and gunshots, Shi Yao would still have been able to understand why. However, Mr. Numbers wasn't relying on any external factors at all. It was as if he was looking at the other party's screen, and he was able to accurately pinpoint the other party's location. This was practically mind-reading. No matter how Shi Yao thought about it, she couldn't help but find it inconceivable. After the match ended, she couldn't help but run to WeChat and send 3 consecutive messages to less than 111,111. Do you know someone from Star Fate? Do you often play games with them? Otherwise, how did you manage to understand their fighting style so well? It took a long while before Mr. Numbers finally replied. It was pure luck? So, was it really a coincidence? Mr. Numbers randomly guessed, and he guessed correctly? Biting on her finger, Yao pondered for a moment, and she couldn't help but agree that it wasn't entirely impossible. Thus, she casually replied to Mr. Numbers, "Are you saying that you're a blind cat and those two from Starfate are dead mice?" 111,111, 111,111, transferred 50,000 yuan. 111,111, transferred 50,000 yuan. 111,111, transfer. There were a total of 9 transfer notifications, and by the time Yao was done collecting them, her WeChat account balance had already exceeded 500,000 renminbi. However, due to her bloated ego, she took a screenshot and sent it over to 111,111. Do you see that? I'm already a millionaire. 111,111. Question mark. Yao loves ice cream. 500,000. That's half of a million. That's half a millionaire. That's half a millionaire. 111,111. Mr. Numbers might be a cold and aloof person, but after getting to know him, he rarely brushed her off like that. Yao had a rough idea of what was going on, so she asked, "Are you busy?" 111,111. Okay. Chapter 729. Out of convenience, Yao asked, "Is it a girl?" Less than 111,111. Yao loves ice cream, huh? I won't disturb you then. Asterisk caret caret asterisk. Yao was still thinking that Mr. Numbers was being perfunctory a moment ago, but she soon found herself slapped in the face. Less than 111,111. It's an old friend I've known for many years. I'm currently discussing work matters with her. Why did Mr. Numbers have to explain things to me in such detail? It's as if I'm his wife, Pui. Wife your head. What in the world is going on in my head? I'm clearly his husband. Pui Pui. It's his guar. Pui Pui Pui. It's his disciple. Disciple? Yao shook her head to clear her mind before replying to Mr. Numbers' message. Oh, I'm going to have dinner too. Bye-bye. Talk to you later. Less than 111,111. After Yao was done chatting with Mr. Numbers, she didn't forget to treat Lung Wan, He Tian, and Jiang Yu to dinner. He Tian was the one who chose the location for dinner. As it wasn't too late, she chose a Yunnan restaurant located on the 5th floor of a shopping mall some distance away from the school. By the time they arrived, it was already 7 p.m., so there was no need for them to wait for a table. After taking a seat, Yao first ordered what she wanted to eat before passing the menu to Lung Wan and the others before rushing to the washroom. After coming out of the washroom, Yao stood in front of the sink. As she washed her hands, her phone kept ringing non-stop in her pocket. After washing her hands, she grabbed a napkin and wiped the water droplets off her hands. As she walked out of the washroom, she reached for her phone and looked at the screen. A series of notifications popped up. The number looked a little familiar, but Yao wasn't able to identify who it was. Tapping on it, the first thing she saw was a picture. She zoomed in and saw a man and a woman sitting opposite each other in front of a floor-to-ceiling window. Yao didn't recognize the woman, but even though she could only see the side of her face, she could still tell that her facial features were beautiful. As for the man, Yao couldn't be more familiar with him. He was Lin Jiej, whom she hadn't seen since her birthday. From the photo, it could be seen that Lin Jiej was quite familiar with the young lady. There wasn't a hint of aloofness in his eyes. Yao stared at the photo for a long time before looking at the other messages. I heard that Brother Jia called off his engagement with you? Just from the tone of his voice and the words Brother Jia, Yao could already tell who the other party was. Liang Mumu. No wonder her phone number sounded so familiar. In fact, she used to keep her phone number, but after they fell out, she deleted it from her contact list. However, they had been friends for many years. Although she didn't know her number by heart, she had a general idea of the 11 digits. But I don't think you'll reply to my message, right? It's okay. I didn't expect you to reply to my message anyway. You don't know the girl in the photo, right? After all, by the time you met Brother Jia, she was already overseas. Her name is Liang Xiao. Although we have the same surname, we have nothing to do with each other. You probably don't know much about her, right? But don't worry, I can explain it to you. Chapter 730. She's 2 years older than Brother Jia, and she used to like Brother Jia. She was in the same school as Brother Jia, and back then, she pursued Brother Jia fervently. If you don't believe me, you can ask Sis Jiai, my cousin, or even Brother Jia's classmates in middle school. In any case, Liang Zhao's pursuit of Brother Jia is something that everyone in their school knows about. You might not know this, but back then, Liang Xiao was extremely daring. Back then, she even pulled up a banner and confessed to Brother Jia. Of course, that wasn't the craziest thing she did. The craziest thing she did was to stay back 2 years for Brother Jia and forcefully become his classmate. As for Brother Jia's feelings for her, I'm not too sure either. What I can tell you is that when many people went to ask Brother Jia about their math problems in middle school, Brother Jia only replied with one sentence. Am I a teacher? Liang Xiao was the only exception. Brother Jia had helped her with the math problems. Back then, this matter caused quite a commotion in the school. Oh, that's not all. When Liang Xiao left the country, Brother Jia even sent her off at the airport. She just arrived in Beijing this morning, and Brother Jia had dinner with her at Jin Maoyue. You might not know about this, right? Jin Maoyue is a well-known restaurant in Beijing. Back when Liang Xiao was still in Beijing, she loved to eat there. Right, there's one more thing. I heard that the Lin family is currently looking for a new fiancé for Brother Jia. Grandpa Lin and Liang Zhao's grandfather played chess together 2 days ago, and they had dinner together yesterday. They seem to be meeting up every other day, and my aunt said that they seem to be discussing marriage. Lastly, the reason why I'm sending you so many messages is to let you know that other than you, any of the girls around Brother Jia are many times better than you. Liang Mumu, is there something wrong with her? She must be doing this on purpose. She liked Lin Jiej, but she couldn't get him. Now that she saw Lin Jiej with another girl, she decided to vent her anger in front of Shi Yao. Shi Yao really wanted to send a message to retort back, but barely after she tapped on her phone's keyboard and typed out a few words, she suddenly froze. Liang Mumu was just feeling a little uncomfortable. If she were to reply angrily, wouldn't that be indirectly telling her that she had been affected by her words? Forget it. There's no need to get angry at her. With such thoughts in mind, Shi Yao deleted the words that she had typed earlier one by one. Yao Yao? Just as Shi Yao was about to delete everything, Lung Wan's voice sounded from the front. Shi Yao raised her head. Meeting her gaze, Lung Wan spoke up once more. I thought that something had happened to you. It's been so long since you returned. No, I just answered a phone call. Oh, then hurry up and go in to eat. All the dishes have been served. Shi Yao nodded vigorously before returning to the dining hall with Lung Wan. After sitting down, she picked up a pair of chopsticks and added a piece of fish to her plate. As soon as she brought it to her mouth, the photo that Liang Mumu had sent her earlier flashed across her mind. Yao Yao, why are you in a daze while biting your chopsticks? Sitting across from Shi Yao, He Tiantian noticed that Shi Yao was staring at her plate without eating, so she tapped her chopsticks lightly on her plate. Recovering from her daze, Shi Yao replied with an "oh" before picking up the bowl of soup that Lung Wan had served for her. However, barely after taking 2 mouthfuls, the messages that Liang Mumu had sent flashed across her mind. She picked up her bowl and fell into a daze once more. Chapter 731. Yao Yao. The one who noticed Shi Yao's abnormality was Jiang Yu. She called out to Shi Yao, but seeing that the latter was ignoring her, she waved her hand in front of Shi Yao's face and said, Yao Yao, why are you staring at the bowl? Is there a fly in it? Shi Yao's eyes followed Jiang Yu's movements, and it was only then that she snapped out of her daze. She pouted and said, Yao Yue, what nonsense are you talking about? We're eating right now. Jiang Yu, since you know that we're eating, why aren't you eating? He Tiantian, that's right. You've always been the most enthusiastic when it comes to eating, so why didn't you eat earlier? Compared to Jiang Yu and He Tiantian, Lung Wan, who was sitting beside Shi Yao, was much more considerate and gentle. Are you feeling unwell? As she spoke, Lung Wan touched Shi Yao's forehead, and after confirming that her temperature was normal, she tilted her head to look at Shi Yao for a moment before asking, "Or, did you meet with some trouble?" "It's nothing. It's just that the CET-6 exam is coming up soon, so I'm wondering if I should just take it in the second half of this year." Shi Yao came up with a random excuse to gloss over it. However, she wasn't good at lying, so after saying those words, she lowered her head and drank her soup to conceal the helplessness in her eyes. He Tian, who had barely passed the CET exam in the first half of the semester but failed it, was displeased. Yao, you're going too far. I haven't even passed the CET exam yet, and you're already thinking of passing the CET-6 exam? Are you going to pass the CET-8 exam by the time I pass the CET exam? Zhang Yu, who hadn't even registered for the CET exam yet, nodded in agreement. I'm on Tiantian's side. Yao, you're going too far. Even if you're treating us to a meal today, I still think that you're going too far. Faced with Jiang Yu and He Tiantian's displeasure, Shi Yao's eyes curved into crescents as she gestured for everyone to continue eating. After a few mouthfuls, Shi Yao's chopsticks suddenly stopped moving once more. But this time, she didn't fall into a daze. Instead, she tilted her head and pondered for a moment before saying, "Oh right, let me ask you guys something. Say, if there's a girl with a good background and good looks, this good, it's really good, it's like, Shi Yao tilted her head to the side and pondered for a moment before replying, "Other cakes might be strawberry or mango cakes, but this cake is filled with strawberries, mangoes, oranges, and peaches. In any case, it's filled with all the fruits you can think of." He Tian had a mouthful of food in her mouth, and after hearing Shi Yao's description, she silently shot her a thumbs up. Zhang Yu looked at Shi Yao with admiration in her eyes and said, Yao, in terms of description, I'm convinced that you're the only one I'm convinced of." Taking it as a compliment, Shi Yao accepted it before continuing on to the main point. In any case, this girl is a perfect match. She likes a guy who's younger than her by 2 years, and he's also from a good family background and looks. To put it simply, it's a male version of a cake that contains strawberries, mangoes, oranges, and peaches. No, this guy is better than the girl in all aspects, just that the amount of fruits is twice as much. Chapter 732. As for the boy, he treated the girl in a special way. In the entire school, she was the only one he had ever given lessons to. Later, when the girl went overseas, he sent her off at the airport. Later, the girl returned to the country. That night, the boy and the girl met up for dinner. After explaining everything to them, Shi Yao asked the question that had been bothering her for a while. "Do you think that the guy is interested in the girl?" Throughout the entire story, Jiang Yu had been biting on her chopsticks as she listened intently to Shi Yao's story. Instead of answering her question, she asked, "What happened after that?" "Shi Yao, I really want to know what happens next." "Jiang Yu, looks like it's a serialized novel." "I hate serialized novels the most, but I can't help it. I've been kept in suspense by you." Yao, please give me the title." "Serialization? Book title? What the hell was this?" Shi Yao frowned. "What book is it called?" "Jiang Yu, what else could it be? It's the title of the story you just told me." He Tian nodded vehemently. "Me too. What the hell?" She had talked for half a day, and they actually treated it as a novel? Shi Yao, it's not a novel. It's the truth. It really happened. Jiang Yu waved her hand in disbelief. "Don't tease me. Let me tell you, I've seen many similar novels on the internet. There are at least 800 of them, if not 1,000. That's a typical school novel. When two people are young, they have feelings for each other. Before they can confirm their relationship, one of them goes abroad, causing them to separate. After many years, they meet again, and the male and female protagonists finally fall in love with each other." He Tian nodded in agreement. That's right. Yao, don't try to deceive us with your novel. Only those authors who indulge in the wildest fantasies are capable of coming up with such a perfect fruit cake. There's no such thing as a perfect fruit cake in real life, so just tell us the title of your novel. Even if you don't have a title, it's fine too." You should at least remember the names of the male and female leads, right? Give it to me, and I will immediately search for it on Baidu. What was going on these days? Does no one believe you when you speak the truth? Shuyao puffed up her cheeks and said, I swear on all the snacks in my dormitory cupboard that I'm telling the truth. And in the story I just told, the boy and the girl were eating together at this very moment. Zhang Yu asked, Did you swear on your snacks? Looks like it's true. He Tian nudged her head closer to Shuyao and asked, Who's the boy and girl? Is he from our school? Do we know each other? But then again, Yao, boy and girl eating together. What does it have to do with you? Why do you care so much? Hearing He Tian's seemingly ordinary words, Shuyao suddenly felt a little sheepish. One of my friends told me a story about one of her friends. She asked me if that guy had any feelings for a girl, and that's when she asked me if that guy was interested in a girl. I don't know either, so I came to ask you. Oh, I see. So, it was your friend who asked you about it. Zhang Yu was very convinced by Shuyao's explanation. Based on the plot of novels, a man would surely have feelings for a woman, and it's a very deep one at that. It's the kind of feeling where he'll marry no one but her. Deep feelings, marrying no one but her. Shuyao's fingers trembled, and she nearly dropped her chopsticks on the table. Chapter 733. After Shuyao calmed herself down, she subconsciously spoke up. Even though her voice was still soft and adorable, the speed at which she spoke was clearly a little anxious. Yeah. I've already told you that this isn't a novel but reality. Don't try to give me an answer based on a novel. Hearing Shuyao's words, Lung Nuan lowered her gaze, and while the other three weren't paying attention, her lips curled up slightly. Shuyao was frightened by Zhang Yu's words. Judging from her reaction, she was probably afraid that the person in question wasn't her so-called friend but herself. After all, if it was really a matter of a friend, why would she be so nervous? She didn't know every single person she knew, but based on what she had just described, Lin Jiej was probably the only one who came from a good background and family, and he fit the role of a male lead in a novel. So, Lin Jiej had invited an outstanding lady to dinner tonight, and she found out about it, so she couldn't sit still? While Lung Nuan silently pondered over the matter, the other three were still engaged in a lively discussion. Zhang Yu, who had been inexplicably scolded by Shuyao, pouted indignantly, I've never been in a relationship before, so how would I know? The only answer I can give you is the plot in the novel. He Tian, putting aside the plot in the novel, Yao, based on what you've just described, the man only explained the questions to the lady, and he even sent her off at the airport when she left the country. From this, it can be seen that the lady is very special to the man. As soon as the lady returned to the country, the man couldn't wait to ask her out for dinner. From this, it can also be seen that the man has been thinking about the lady all these years. Special, thinking about the lady. Shuyao's mouth fell open for a moment before she finally spoke. Is it really as exaggerated as you make it out to be? Hearing those words, Lung Nuan broke the silence. Exaggerated? Tian isn't exaggerating at all. In fact, she's being very subtle about it. In my opinion, the lady isn't just special to the man. It's very important. As Lung Nuan spoke, she discreetly shot a glance at Shuyao. When Shuyao said the words very important, the lady's fingers had clearly tightened around her chopsticks. Ever since Lin Jiej had asked her to take care of Shuyao when she was crying on the field, she had already known that her feelings for Lin Jiej had probably fallen for him. Back then, she had thought that her feelings for Lin Jiej were just the beginning. But from the looks of it now, it seemed like she had already fallen deeply into his affections, just that she didn't realize it. From the looks of it, Shuyao needed a dose of medicine to stimulate her. With such thoughts in mind, Lung Nuan spoke up once more. Based on what you've said earlier, the two families are of similar backgrounds, so it's clear that they're well matched in terms of social standing. Furthermore, they're childhood sweethearts. This is a match bestowed by the heavens. Fate bestowed by the heavens. Shuyao's face paled a little. She hesitated for a moment before stuttering. Her words didn't seem to be directed at Lung Nuan but more to console herself. But if what you said is true, and the man is interested in the woman, why didn't the man agree to the woman's confession? Chapter 734. However, it doesn't matter whether the man had feelings for the woman back then or not. What's more important is that they've been apart for so many years, and yet, the woman is already having dinner together after returning to the country. What does that mean? It means that they've been in contact with each other all these years. At this point, Lung Wan's gaze swept over the young lady beside her. Even though the young lady was trying her best to maintain her composure, the occasional movement of her feet betrayed her uneasiness. Lung Wan knew that the dose of medicine she'd used earlier wasn't enough, so she added another stab. Yao Yao, I'm sure you've heard of this saying before. It's difficult for a man to woo a man, but it's very easy for a woman to woo a man. Furthermore, a man like the man you've just mentioned is the dream husband of many women. Not everyone in this society is righteous, and there are many people who are scheming to some extent, and there are also many who won't give up just to achieve their goals. Thus, there are some women who will resort to all sorts of methods to woo a man. The most direct one is to get drunk, go to the beach together, and purposely show off a little something to the man to seduce him. Of course, there are also some women who despise such methods, but think about it. If a beautiful and proactive woman from a good family were to send herself to the man's doorstep, it's inevitable that the man wouldn't be moved. At this point, Lung Wan could see a hint of panic in the depths of Shi Yao's eyes. She knew that her medicine had stimulated Shi Yao enough, but it wasn't enough. More importantly, she wanted Shi Yao to see her own heart. With this thought in mind, Lung Wan spoke up once more. Right, Yao Yao, you said that your friend asked you about this matter. Is your friend a man or a woman? She's a woman. Shi Yao tilted her head and asked, What's wrong? She's a woman? Lung Wan countered with a question. A moment later, she said, That woman probably likes that man, right? If Shi Yao had made it clear that this was her own experience, it would have been hard for her to explain. But now that she said that it was a question from her friend, it made things easier for her. Likes? Lung Wan said that this woman likes that man. In other words, she likes Lin Jiej? You like Lin Jiej? Shi Yao's mind went blank. She stared at Lung Wan in shock for a moment before she muttered, You like him? Yeah, your friend definitely likes that guy. If she doesn't like him, why would she care if he's interested in that girl? Lung Wan paused for a moment. Then, as if recalling something, she continued, Well, it's not that I'm concerned about it. To be more precise, I'm very concerned about it, and other than that, I'm also jealous. I jealous? Shi Yao was still in a daze. Yeah, jealous. If I'm not wrong, your friend should be really wanting to go to the place where the guy and the girl are eating to see what's going on with them. Struck right into the heart of the matter, Shi Yao blurted out, How did you know? Chapter 735. I see. Lung Wan put on a confident look, not exposing Shi Yao's lie. It looks like your friend is a little too jealous, much more so than I thought. It's the kind of jealousy that can overturn a vinegar jar. If I'm not mistaken, your friend is probably intending to send that guy a message to ask him what he's doing right now. At the same time, this time, Shi Yao didn't say anything. Lung Wan ate 2 mouthfuls of food before continuing. Yao Yao, even though I don't know your friend, there's something that I think you should advise her as her friend. If she really likes that guy, she should muster up the courage to fight for him. There are many things in this world that one has to grasp with one's own 2 hands. No one will stay in the same spot forever, waiting for you. Perhaps he might wait for a month, 2 months, or even a year. But as time goes by, everyone gets tired. Besides, there are so many temptations in this world, and no one can guarantee what will happen in the next moment. Sometimes, fate can just disappear like that. Lung Wan knew that some words should be kept in check, or else they might just backfire. So, after saying all that, she chose to end the topic at the right time. I accidentally went off topic, so let's not talk about this anymore. Yao Yao, you haven't eaten much, so hurry up and eat. As she spoke, Lung Wan picked up 2 more dishes for Shi Yao. Shi Yao still didn't say a word, but she picked up her chopsticks and began eating. Halfway through her meal, she suddenly stopped. Indeed, if Lung Wan hadn't mentioned it, she wouldn't have realized that her panic and fear when Lin Jiej annulled his engagement with her was actually because she liked him. Her reluctance to annul the engagement with him was because she liked him. Her unwillingness to go to his place to buy a cake when she found out that there was no one to accompany him on his birthday was also because she liked him. She didn't know when she fell in love with him, but at this very moment, she was convinced that she liked him. Perhaps she had liked him a long time ago, but because she had always felt that they were not in the same world, and because she had never thought of liking him, she subconsciously concealed and denied the feelings that had sprouted in her heart. Perhaps, deep down, she was well aware of her feelings for him, but because she had stumbled upon her parents' secret, she didn't dare to like him anymore. She had always wanted to return the money to the Lin family, but she wasn't in such a hurry before. Now, she was in such a hurry because she was afraid. Afraid that the Lin family would find out what her parents were thinking. Afraid that he would look down on them. Lung Wan was right. Not only did she want to head over to the place where Lin Jiej was eating with Liang Xiao, she also wanted to send him a message. Even though she was eating with Lung Wan and the others, her heart and soul had already been hooked away by Lin Jiej. She was jealous. She was 100% unwilling to have him spend dinner with that girl. As this thought flashed across Shi Yao's mind with absolute certainty, she suddenly raised her head to look at Lung Wan and the others. Do you have any more dishes? He Tianyun shook her head. There's no need for that. Don't we still have a lot to eat? Shi Yao replied with an "oh" before gesturing for the waiter to pay the bill. Zhang Yao, we haven't finished eating yet. Why are you in such a hurry to pay the bill? Shi Yao took out her phone and scanned the QR code as she replied. You guys enjoy your meal. I have something on, so I'll be leaving first. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening, and most of the big restaurants in Beijing had already closed for the day, but she had to go in right now. She couldn't say that she was here to look for someone, because she didn't know which table Lin Jiej and the others were seated at. Miss, is there anything else? Seeing that Shi Yao wasn't saying a word, and she happened to be blocking the way out, the waitress politely spoke up once more. She knew that the attendant was indirectly asking her to leave, but she couldn't just leave. At the same time, she couldn't just stand there shamelessly. No, I'm not here to eat, I'm... Chapter 737. After saying those words, Shi Yao wished that she could bite her tongue off. Before entering Jean Maoyue, she had clearly seen a 24-hour KFC across the street, and to the left of Jean Maoyue was a McDonald's. But since she had already come up with a reason, she couldn't possibly just tear down her own cover, could she? Besides, it didn't matter whether the reason was embarrassing or not. What was important was that it was effective. With such thoughts in mind, Shi Yao's eyes darted around for a moment before she stomped her feet anxiously and said, I'm really in a hurry, please. The attendant didn't expect Shi Yao to make such a request either, and she was stunned for a full 10 seconds. It was only after Shi Yao spoke up once more that she snapped out of her daze and pointed in a direction. Miss, you can head down this road and turn left. You'll see the washroom there. Shi Yao smiled at the waitress and thanked her before following the direction she was pointing in. As if she had seen hope, she jogged over to the washroom. After entering the restaurant, no one paid any attention to Shi Yao anymore. She quickly scanned the entire restaurant before finding Lin Jiej's seat by the window. They had probably finished their meal by now. Other than dessert, there was only a plate of fruits on the table. In truth, Lin Jiej wasn't seated at the table. There was only a woman there. Even though Shi Yao had never met Liang Xiao before, she could still tell from the photo that she had seen earlier that she was Liang Xiao. Liang Xiao looked much more beautiful in real life than in the photo that Liang Mumu had sent her. At this moment, she was holding a mirror in her hand and reapplying her lipstick. Even though Shi Yao couldn't get a good look at Liang Xiao from afar, she could still sense the latter's overwhelming beauty and the elegance and disposition that had been nurtured from a young age. It wasn't that Shi Yao hadn't seen beautiful and outstanding women before, but this was the first time she was comparing herself to someone else. Liang Mumu was right. No matter how she looked at Liang Xiao looked better than her. Everyone had their own strengths, but for some reason, Shi Yao couldn't help but feel inferior when she looked at Liang Xiao. Perhaps this was the embodiment of liking someone. You'd always feel that you weren't good enough, afraid that you weren't good enough, and always want to make yourself better. While Shi Yao was deep in thought as she stared at Liang Xiao, Lin Jie walked over. Noticing Lin Jie's presence, Liang Xiao stopped reapplying her lipstick and raised her head to look at him. Lin Jie's back was facing Shi Yao, so she couldn't see the expression on his face. However, she could clearly see the dazzling smile blossoming on Liang Xiao's face the instant her eyes met Lin Jie's. Lin Jie didn't sit down. Instead, the two of them continued chatting, one standing while the other lifted his head. It was hard to tell what they were discussing, but eventually, Lin Jie took his coat from the back of the chair while Liang Xiao stuffed her mirror and lipstick into her bag before standing up. Did they mean that they were leaving? Shi Yao quickly scanned her surroundings before hiding behind a pillar not too far away. Soon, Lin Jie and Liang Xiao walked over. Along the way, the two of them seemed to be talking about something. Most of it was Liang Xiao speaking, but Shi Yao didn't pay much attention to what the latter was saying. She only knew that Liang Xiao was beautiful and elegant, and even her voice was pleasant to the ears. Chapter 738. Liang Xiao was wearing a pair of red heels that accentuated her long and slender legs. Shi Yao wasn't sure if she was imagining things to be too perfect, but even the sound of her walking in heels sounded pleasant to her ears. Shi Yao waited for them to walk out of the main hall before discreetly following them. Through the glass door, she saw that the restaurant's doorman had already driven Lin Jie's car to the entrance. Lin Jie casually pulled open the back door and gestured for Liang Xiao to get in, after which he walked over to the driver's seat, took the car keys from the doorman, and got into the car. Back then, when he was driving, she was sitting in the back seat, and he even retorted sarcastically, "Am I the driver?" Then, he even had her get out of the car and sit in the front passenger seat. Why didn't he have Liang Xiao get out of the car and sit in the front passenger seat instead? Shi Yao stared at Lin Jie's car as anger welled up in her heart. Soon, the car drove away from Jean Malue's entrance. Shi Yao hurriedly chased after it. She glanced in the direction that Lin Jie's car was heading in, so she flagged down a taxi by the roadside and hurriedly chased after it. When they passed by the entrance of the Four Seasons Hotel, Lin Jie's car slowed down a little, and Shi Yao subconsciously tightened her grip on the handle. What do you mean? Are they heading to a hotel? With widened eyes, Shi Yao held her breath as she stared intently at the car in front of her. It wasn't until the car sped up once more and drove away from the entrance of the Four Seasons Hotel that Shi Yao heaved a sigh of relief, as if she had just escaped death. After passing by the Four Seasons Hotel, they soon arrived at Lin Jie's apartment. Around 100 meters away, the car began to slow down, and Shi Yao instinctively clenched her fists tightly. When the car stopped at the entrance of Lin Jie's neighborhood, Shi Yao abruptly stood up, and her head knocked onto the roof of the car. The pain nearly made her tears flow down her cheeks. Ignoring the strange gaze that the driver was shooting at her, she gasped in shock and rubbed her head. Then, she saw Lin Jie's car moving once more, and it seemed like it was heading toward the entrance of the neighborhood. Is Lin Jie bringing Liang Xiao back to his place? Shi Yao subconsciously pushed open the car door, intending to get out. But barely after she opened the door a little, Lin Jie's car sped up and drove away. Shi Yao closed the car door and instructed the taxi driver to keep up. Roughly 10 minutes later, Lin Jie's car drove into the underground parking lot of the Golden Resplendence. So, did Lin Jie and Liang Xiao head to Golden Resplendence to play after dinner? She had only been to this place once, and it was when Grandpa Lin had asked him to bring her here. Shi Yao stared at the dazzling Golden Resplendence through the car window for a moment before the driver asked, "Miss, are we driving into the underground parking lot too?" "There's no need for that." After replying to the driver, Shi Yao took out some cash from her wallet and paid the fare before getting out of the car. In late autumn in Beijing, it was already very cold at night. A gust of cold wind blew past, causing Shi Yao to shiver uncontrollably. After which, she turned her attention back to Golden Resplendence. Since they came here to play, they would definitely drink, right? Chapter 739. As these questions flashed across Shi Yao's mind, the image of Liang Xiao holding Lin Jie's arm and walking toward her slowly surfaced in her mind. As Liang Xiao got closer and closer to her, her stomach slowly grew larger. When she was right in front of her, a white and soft carrot suddenly fell out of her stomach. She instinctively lowered her head to take a look, but that wasn't a carrot at all. It was a chubby doll waving its arms around, begging for her to hug it. As Shi Yao imagined this, it was as if there was really a carrot right in front of her. She instinctively took 2 steps back in horror before lowering her head to take a closer look. Only after confirming that there was nothing in front of her did she heave a sigh of relief. Shi Yao closed her eyes and took in 2 deep breaths to calm her heart, which had been inexplicably frightened by the carrot, before raising her head once more to look at Golden Resplendence. The thought of liking him had never crossed her mind, so even though her heart had wavered, it was quickly covered up by her deep-rooted self-suggestion. If not for Lung Nuan's casual conversation with her, thinking that she was her friend, she would never have realized that she liked him. Since she didn't want him to be with other girls, she was afraid that he would really be chased away by other girls. Besides, she was already here. There was no reason for her to back down just because Liang Xiao looked outstanding. With such thoughts in mind, Shi Yao gulped down a mouthful of saliva. As if summoning all her courage, she began walking toward the main entrance of Golden Resplendence. However, she had only walked about 10 meters when the phone in her bag suddenly rang. As Shi Yao walked forward, she hurriedly took out her phone and took a look at the caller ID. It was from her cousin, Gu Nanqiang. Without any hesitation, she accepted the call. "What's wrong, Nanqiang?" "Sis, where are you right now? My mom just called me, saying that your father suddenly fainted and was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. My mom then said that she couldn't get through to you no matter how hard she tried." "What's going on, sis?" As her parents had been trying everything they could to force her to beg Lin Jiej back, she had blacklisted their number. Hearing Gu Nanqiang's words, Shi Yao abruptly halted her footsteps and asked, "Which hospital is he in?" "I don't know. You have to ask my mom." Before Gu Nanqiang could finish his words, Shi Yao had already hurriedly hung up the call. She pulled out her mother's phone number from the blacklist and returned the call. A second before the phone was picked up, the next second there was her mother's crying voice. "Yao Yao, your father is now in the hospital for emergency treatment. You need to come quickly." While asking for the address, Shi Yao turned around and walked toward the side of the road. After hanging up the call with her mother, she reached out to hail a taxi. After pulling open the door, she turned to look at the majestic clubhouse behind her. After thinking for a moment, she finally bent over and sat in the car. The reason why Lin Jiej asked Liang Xiao out tonight couldn't be considered as a personal matter. More than that, it was for official business. After dinner, he received a call. Because it was not convenient for Liang Xiao to hear the content of the conversation, he apologized to Liang Xiao and went to a quieter place to talk on the phone. Chapter 740. Why is she here? Lin Jiej stared at Shi Yao for a moment, only to realize that she was staring fixedly at the table where he and Liang Xiao were seated. Or to be more precise, she was staring fixedly at Liang Xiao. At this hour, Jean Maoyue should have already closed her restaurant, so it was unlikely that she was here to eat. Then, for her to be here, Lin Jiej found it hard to believe, but a sliver of hope still lingered in his heart. Thus, he suppressed his urge to walk up to her and walked straight up to Liang Xiao. Upon seeing him, Liang Xiao raised her head and told him that Liang Jusi knew that she was back, so he invited her over to have some fun at Golden Resplendence. It was still early, and she had just returned to the country, so her biological clock hadn't adjusted yet. Thus, she agreed to Liang Jusi's invitation. She even asked him if he wanted to tag along. Lin Jiej's first thought was to reject her invitation, but just as the words were about to leave his mouth, he changed his mind and said that he wouldn't be able to stay for too long, but he could give her a lift on the way. After paying the bill, Shi Yao probably sensed that he and Liang Xiao were about to leave the restaurant, so she hid behind a pillar. Pretending that he didn't know that she was there, he left the restaurant with Liang Xiao. He knew that she was watching him, and he admitted that he was curious to see her reaction after seeing him with another woman. Nevertheless, he still didn't allow Liang Xiao to sit in the front passenger seat. Instead, he opened the back door for her and let her in. Through the rearview mirror, he saw her running out of Jean Maoyue not too long after. He wasn't sure whether she was following him or not, so he slowed down a little. It was only after she flagged down a taxi by the roadside and followed behind him that he felt assured enough to continue driving. However, he was still afraid that she would lose him, so whenever he saw her car being blocked by another car, he would slow down and wait for her to catch up before speeding up again. When he passed by the Four Seasons Hotel, he intentionally stopped for a moment. However, he didn't want Liang Xiao to see through his thoughts, so he pointed to the renovations that the Four Seasons Hotel had undergone over the years and chatted with her. In fact, from the Four Seasons Hotel to the majestic clubhouse, there was no need to pass through the entrance of his neighborhood. However, he deliberately took a detour and parked the car at the entrance of his neighborhood. He gave Liang Xiao a brief explanation of the facilities in his house. After Liang Xiao was done, he went to the majestic clubhouse. When he entered the underground parking lot of the Golden Lounge, he pretended to receive a message and stopped the car. He looked like he was replying to the message with his head lowered, but in reality, all his attention was on the roadside. He saw her taxi stop by the roadside, and after she got out of the car, he stepped on the accelerator and drove into the underground parking lot. Lin Jiej and Liang Xiao entered the suite one after another, and they didn't stay for too long before they left. However, he didn't head to the underground parking lot right away. Instead, he headed straight to the lobby and sat in the resting area, staring at the entrance of the lobby. She followed him all the way, and she even stared at Liang Xiao without blinking at Jean Maoyue. So tonight, she purposely followed him? Would she have followed him into the majestic clubhouse after seeing him enter with a girl? 1 minute passed, 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.